Urban Meyer commented on Tennessee's quarterback situation recently while speaking on a podcast, the Triple Option podcast. So Urban Meyer is claiming that Tennessee needs to name a starting quarterback early. Now, I'm talking about early into fall camp is what he's claiming. His reasoning makes sense, but it does kind of go against what Josh Heupel typically does. So let me give you guys a quick comment on what Urban Meyer, a quick snippet. Let me play a quick snippet of what Urban Meyer said on the Triple Option podcast. And this is the first time Urban Meyer said something that I don't think is trying to undercut somebody for his own selfish gain. I think he actually has a good point here. I'm going to play what he said, and then we're going to come back and discuss. This is what Urban Meyer said about on the Triple Option podcast about Tennessee's quarterback situation.
The minute you said you got a quarterback issue, I go right to their schedule. And here's the problem. You screw around with your quarterback because you have to name a quarterback within 2 weeks of training camp. There's no chance that you can let this thing bleed out because the team has to know who your quarterback is. So a guy that's just stepping on campus now, a guy that's only completed or attempted 9 passes, I believe. You have to, and Josh Heupel played quarterback won the Heisman, right? Or at least a national. I'm not sure, but he knows enough about quarter play to get to. He has to announce this sooner than later. And they got Syracuse, East Tennessee State, and Georgia. You can't come out of that.
All right, so Urban Meyer is saying that Josh Heupel needs to name his starting quarterback 2 weeks into 2 weeks into fall camp. First, let me say this up front. Josh Heupel's not going to do that. Okay? Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better. Josh Heupel is not going to name his starting quarterback until the week of the Syracuse game, even if it's the wrong thing to do. Bank on it. Josh Heupel will not name his starting quarterback until the week of the Syracuse game.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right, so I'm putting up the poll question now, which is how early should Josh Heupel name his starting quarterback? And we'll go 2 weeks into fall camp. The week before the, how about this? Before fall camp, early into fall camp, just before the opener is fine, or after the season starts. You guys let me know on this on the poll question. That's kind of those are the 4 that I want to bring up. How early should Josh Heupel name his starting quarterback? Before fall camp, early into fall camp, just before the opener is fine, or after the season starts? I have to say that at least within the team, not publicly, but at least to the team, Josh Heupel can employ some gamesmanship. Naming a starting quarterback early into fall camp is probably important. Look, Jimmy Hyams just brought it up. We talked about it. The starting quarterback has to develop a rapport with the receivers because the receivers and the quarterback, the receivers have to do these read routes and the quarterback has to guess which way they're going to read, okay? You have to get them on the same page and running the same first team reps together. Otherwise, you got a big issue. So Tennessee absolutely needs to have their starting quarterback. I think, honestly, this is why Josh Heupel likes to name his starting quarterback, or at least in his mind, have the starting quarterback he wants before fall camp starts. Because he wants to establish that rapport with the quarterback and the receivers before anything happens, okay? And look, it's one of those things that I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult to accept, but if you drag this thing out, Urban Meyer is right. Syracuse is not an easy out for the opener. They're just not. Okay. Syracuse had a very good first year under Fran Brown. They are a hot rising college football program right now. I think there's a very good chance that Syracuse gives Tennessee trouble if Tennessee does not have its quarterback situation figured out early. Okay. So I honestly think that Urban Meyer, I mean, look, whatever you think of him as a person, he's right here. Okay. Sometimes his analysis is good. You got to have your starting quarterback named. And Urban Meyer actually knows this better than anybody. For those who don't remember, when Urban Meyer took over at Florida in 2005, Urban Meyer took over at Florida, went 9-3 with Chris Leak. Tim Tebow got there the next year and was literally the perfect. I do the created in a lab theory. Tim Tebow, no quarterback was more created in a lab to run Urban Meyer's offense than Tim Tebow. And he's going to Florida. Florida fans wanted Tim Tebow to start immediately. Urban Meyer did not let any of that momentum gain. Okay. He went out in the beginning of fall camp, actually in the beginning of spring camp, and said, Chris Leak's our starter, period, end of story. That kept the team together. Another example was in 2014 when he won the national title at Ohio State. Braxton Miller was his starter. Braxton Miller got hurt. JT Barrett came in. JT Barrett got hurt. Then he went to Cardale Jones the next year. He said it's a good problem to have all these quarterbacks, but he went in public and named Cardale Jones his starter before the season started because that's who he wanted to go with. Okay. I do think it's important if you have a complex offense, not necessarily complex, but an offense with a lot of moving parts that requires a level of chemistry. I think it's important to have your starting quarterback named early because so many things depend on the rhythm the receivers have with the quarterbacks. So, and look, if Tennessee does start 1-2, they're in deep trouble. They still have to go because they could start 1-2. Again, it's a little bit out there. Okay. They are double-digit favorites over Syracuse. But if they could start 1-2, they still have road trips to Alabama and Florida on the schedule later in the year. That's a problem. Now, Adam has a great point. Meanwhile, Spurrier says start 2 QBs. That's because Spurrier didn't necessarily have a system. He went play to play. He would go play to play and use the athletes that he had at Florida. During that time, Spurrier would run three wide receivers, and most schools still only had cornerbacks to guard two receivers at the time, or 2 wideouts. So he just ran an extra wide receiver out there. Found a track star from the Sunshine State, since Florida is known for speedy receivers out of high school, and just say your 2 guys can't cover my 3. And I think Spurrier was very aware that SEC coaches just weren't very bright during that time period. Totally different story. Okay. I think in general, in this case, I think Josh Heupel needs to go ahead and name his starting quarterback early. I want to get to a couple of super chats from Timothy that I missed earlier because this deals with it to a certain degree, and I do appreciate Timothy's. I always appreciate Timothy's super chats. So he brings up gimmick quarterbacks don't read the full field, and wide receivers don't do timing routes. Quarterback can't read coverages like a Cutcliffe offense. Timothy, okay, I get what you're saying with gimmick offenses in that way, but in that regard, there are a lot of gimmicky offenses that have had success at the college level. So just when you call it a gimmicky offense, I understand what you're saying, but I do think that we have to be fair to the concept of gimmicky offenses because what you might refer to as gimmicky offenses still wins championships. Okay. Another one, you say a gimmick offense is an offense that always looks to the sideline instead of a quarterback reading the defense coverages. Fair. Look to the sideline, or in Spurrier's case, directly have Spurrier call the plays to them in their head, and then he goes out there and then they win a national championship with that. They don't always necessarily look to the sideline in this offense. If you see them the way they run the no huddle, they get up to the line and they just read it. What happens is the quarterback just reads the safety. Typically, he doesn't really look to the sideline. He just reads the safety, and that's where he makes his decision. That's where it's actually similar to the triple option. I mean, it's not similar to the triple option, but think about it like the triple option. If you want to say gimmicky offenses, what happens? The quarterback gets up to the line of scrimmage, reads the defense, and decides, am I going to hand it off to the fullback? Am I going to roll out and run myself, or am I going to pitch it? And it's all based on a reaction to what the defense does. It's gimmicky, yes, but that doesn't mean it's not successful. So as far as the poll question goes, how early should Josh Heupel name his starting quarterback? 41% of you guys are saying just before the opener is fine. 29% of you are saying early into fall camp. 18% of you are saying before fall camp. 12% of you are saying after the season starts. I understand the concept that sometimes it's okay to have a quarterback controversy into the middle of the season. Other coaches have done that. Nick Saban's dealt with that, so it's not like you can't have it. But I do think that in general, for Josh Heupel to get the rhythm right, if he's going to go with Joey Aguilar, I think it's kind of important for Tennessee to go ahead and name their starting quarterback pretty early on, because they got to establish that rapport. The receivers really have a lot they've got to work on. And if that doesn't happen, then there's going to be a really, really, really big issue for them going forward.